Welcome to another episode of Coffee with Karl and Kofi. Man, I am super excited today. We are diving into the book Mastery. And man, my man Karl, bro, like this book, Robert Greene, he just lays out formula,
Yeah,
the formula
yeah,
for success, right? Like I was like, this was like one of those books where I just read it and I'm like, I think that every single person should dive into this book because it truly lays out, and demystifies, as we were talking about, this
yeah,
aspect of becoming an expert, becoming really good at something, and finding, mastery in life, which is to me just so exciting.
yeah. Man, fire book. First and foremost, good to be back with the audience. It's been a little bit. I hope you guys have been well, and hopefully you've been taking a look at many of the other books that we've broken down in our time of doing this. Our whole goal here
Mhm.
is simply put to become masters, right? Is to become lifelong learners that absorb information, but not just absorb it, actually like implement, apply,
Mm.
fail forward, and hopefully learn some skill sets that can carry us along in our lives and our businesses. And that's why mastery is so cool, Kofi, because for me,
Mm.
I approached it as, all right, there's all these people I've always looked up to in business as a young entrepreneur. And
Mhm.
sometimes, quite frankly, man, you can't help but feel a little unqualified relative to somebody that just has
Yeah.
achieved their 10,000 plus hours and now
Yeah.
is able to kind of seamlessly, effortlessly just do these things. And
Uh-huh.
book, man, Robert Greene, to your point, he makes it so attainable for each and every one of us to begin to really learn what it takes to
Hmm.
become masters, which it's my belief is the whole reason why we're put here on this earth with whatever time that we
Yes.
are gifted
Yes.
is make it worthwhile and actually become a master, whatever it is that you do. Become a masterful husband, wife,
Hmm.
teacher, become a masterful business person, become a master of yourself. And so if you're listening to this right now and you're like, that just feels incredibly too large and obtuse, where the heck do I even start? Well, you're in luck because Kofi and I are going to break this one down and
Yes.
probably talk a little bit about what this means for us right now in our lives. So, first and foremost, laying foundation. What is mastery? Well, in the book, he talks about how it's the highest of skill acquisition that involves a deep understanding of a particular field or subject, right? So,
Mm-hmm.
as I say that, Kofi, I want you to be thinking about, all right, what's a field or what's a subject that you're working to master? And I want everybody listening right now to be thinking about what that is for them. I know what it is for me, and we're going to kind of get into that in a little bit. But what are the requirements? What are the prerequisites to begin to staircase your way up to this level of, I'm a master, right?
Yeah.
It's a dedication.
Hmm.
And I don't know about you, man, but like that word used to give me a little bit of trepidation.
Oh yeah.
It feels like such a final answer, locked in, can't change my decision, no
Yeah.
going back. You know what I mean? And if you're
Yeah.
anything like me, there's a little bit of a phobia around just the commitment or the decision, which we
Yes.
have all other options, right? So there's a dedication there, and we're going to come to that. And then once you actually make the decision, right,
Mm.
there's a level of patience that I think is one of the biggest challenges relative to our society today because we
Hmm.
live in sort of a microwavable culture. Things appear to simply happen easy and quick.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
it's like the moment we start to kind of hit that dip, right? We talked about the dip from, I don't know, maybe a book or two ago with Seth Godin. A lot of people sort of disqualify themselves, right? So not only do you need dedication, but you need the patience. And last but least, you need a lifelong commitment. And I think that's the piece where if you can wrap your head around, all right, I'm going to be around, let's say on average, 80 plus years.
Hmm.
Am I willing to every single day maintain a student-like approach to my skill set, my craft, the thing that I'm ultimately committing my life to? Can I humble myself enough to not look at mastery as a destination that I've somehow finally arrived to, but as a fleeting goal that I'm constantly chasing not for attainment of the goal itself, but for
Yeah.
what it's allowing me to become, who it's shaping and molding me
Mm.
into in the pursuit of it, right? And so I'm looking to lay that foundation for ourselves, Kofi. So, as we talk about what that is for us, we can think about it from that lens, but also for the audience, I think that it's critical to have that basis so you understand what you're ultimately signing yourself up for should you choose to flirt with becoming a master
Yeah.
and what it is that you choose. And so, Kof,
I
I
love
want to
this.
come to you real quick, man. As you heard Robert Greene break down some of these concepts, what came up for you, man, as it relates in your life right now?
Yeah, so for me in my life, the things that I'm currently seeking mastery in is, one, being a leader in my business. Two, understanding, different ways that I can help my clients out, financially, and also understanding how I can be a better teacher and guide
Mm,
to the people that are around me. And, I think it's, I want to definitely, after we talk about this, dive into the reasons why mastery is so important and how it really truly evolved, for our species. But like, when it comes to mastery, I find it so fascinating because I'm the type of person that like, there's some things in my life that I felt have like kind of come a bit easy, kind of early on. Like I felt like, as long as I like applied some attention, like I was pretty good at school, I worked pretty hard, in sports, I got pretty good at that. And then as you continue to like develop in life, you go through more and more challenges, right? You get to college, then you get into your career and you get into all these other spaces. And I feel like because you can have some past experiences that may have been easier, you kind of forget like all the hard work that it took for you to actually become a master at something. And so like
mm,
another part that I really loved about this book is it really again like breaks down and makes just the aspect of building, looking at all these people that have been these amazing experts in different spaces,
yeah.
novice, becoming a master, at something. So it's been like, I find it just so amazing how Robert Greene breaks all these different things down.
And who is someone that you've looked at and that you've admired from afar, or maybe even from near, that you would consider a master? And you look at this person, you're like, man, how is it that they just execute at that
Hmm.
level, day in and day out?
Yeah.
Like who's that been for you? I'm curious.
Yeah, for me, one of my biggest, I'd say inspirations has been Alex Harmozy.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. I know he's currently trending right now, but I truly love the way that he goes, like how he shows up, because not only does he, show up at a very high level, an excellent level, but he also talks about things that are below the iceberg as well too, like how many reps it truly takes for
Yeah.
him to actually like, get something done. Like he
Yeah.
talked about like he did like a book launch and how he was like rehearsing that book launch like 3 times a day for a full month. And,
Yeah.
we look at someone like that and we're like, man, like this guy, he's able to take extremely complex ideas and break them down so simply and
Right.
do all these different things. But then he also shows that, other side that's like, hey, like this actually takes so much work to do. And
Hmm.
he really is great at articulating how many reps it truly is taking him to get to where he is today. And I love the way he like presents it. So that for me,
Yeah.
he's been huge. Yeah.
That's an interesting
Inspiration.
one.
Yeah.
Mine is actually, and they're very dear friends. So it's so funny you say Hormozy. Mine is Andy Frisella, right?
Mm,
So
yeah.
he's someone that I see as a master in terms of what it looks like to be a master of yourself, right? So if you all know Andy Frisella, maybe you're not aware of him, he's the creator of the 75 Hard slash Live Hard program.
Mm,
And a lot of people might
okay.
look at that program as like a physical transformation program, which it is not. It is actually a program of learning discipline, right? It is a self mastery program. It is how do you stay committed and dedicated and patient enough over these 75 days. And then he actually has a full year long program now to do these specific tasks that you have within your power to execute on every single day so that you can build a level of mastery over your flesh, which is often fleeting and which often,
Mm.
if you're anything like me, wants you to get distracted and off your path relative to what you say you want to achieve, right? So actually, Hormozy and Priscilla have a couple of great episodes
Yeah.
together, his podcast, Real AF. But I ask you this question, Kofi, because in the book, Robert Greene talks about the three phases of mastery, right? And I kind of want to break down each of these. And the first distinct phase is something that he calls the apprenticeship phase,
Mm,
right?
hmm.
And when I heard about this, I was like, oh, that's interesting. Like apprenticeship, it sounds so rudimentary. It sounds
Yeah.
so industrial revolution age. Like, oh, I'm going to go be a painter. I'm going to go apprentice, or I'm going to go be an electrician. I'm going to go apprentice. And really, I think we've lost the beauty around apprenticeship because the way that
Yes.
it's described in the book,
Yeah.
well, this phase where you actually go shadow, for lack of a better term, you shadow a mentor, right? You watch this person that has achieved mastery in something that you want to build mastery in, and you do everything that you can to absorb knowledge from them, right? And to develop the essential skills by basically copying them, which
Hmm.
requires a tremendous amount of patience. It requires humility, right? Because to your point, bro, I've always been the kind of guy that throw me the ball, coach. My
Yeah.
first day playing the game, I'll figure it out. I'll learn quickly. But there's actually a level of humility that Green talks about that's required to where in apprenticeship, you're not trying to like demonstrate that you know the thing. You're trying to keep yourself
Hmm.
open enough to be molded by the person that you deem your mentor so that you can observe and ultimately demonstrate a willingness to learn, which allows you to be somebody that is shapeable, somebody that's coachable. So tell me about your apprenticeship right now. It sounds like Hormozy is the guy that's trending for you. It
Yeah.
sounds like you're attracted to his content because of his ability to sort of really, what I heard you say was be vulnerable about the work that's
Hmm.
required, put in towards a skill set. What does that look like for you now as you're apprenticing under Alex Hormozy?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'd say the biggest or the area that I find myself in apprenticeship right now is leadership. Truly leadership and managing, people. So, um, one thing that I also want to, say about apprenticeship is like how, as you said, like this is an area that like isn't as, people don't highlight enough nowadays. I think that like the desire to want to be a master like immediately is just because we live in this microwave society is something that everyone has. Like everyone wants to skip that apprenticeship stage. And even myself, right? I look at myself too, like, as a leader of the people that, that are on my team, as a leader of my clients, in all these different spaces, right? Like, I will, let's say I, hire somebody and like I start, working with them, all these different things. Like for me, because I've gotten to a certain level in my craft, I've become, an expert in a lot of different, fields that I work in and serve my clients in. I automatically kind of think, okay, like I take this person on, I should be a great leader, right? I should already have this mastery, right? And like, I don't need to go through the apprenticeship stage because like I know how to do this. I should clearly be able to teach someone else to do this. But not, having that humility and, not understanding that, hey, like this is something new, right? I may be able to lead myself, but then leading others is a whole nother, side of the page. It is a completely different game. Um, in the way that like Robert Greene really breaks it down, I realize it allows you to have so much more patience with yourself, through that like learning experience and saying, hey, like I'm just going to, you know, sit there and read about different, leaders, whether it be, Stephen Covey or John Maxwell, look at people like Alex Harmozy and understand that like there's going to be a certain amount of time and a certain amount of reps that I'm going to have to get in that apprenticeship stage before I can actually even start to like truly like judge my ability, at this skill. And I think that's like, it really brings you back down to earth because again, for me, like when I do something and I don't do well at it,
Mhm.
I can be very, self-critical of myself. I can be very
Yeah.
like, man, like why, can't I do this right? Why have I failed? And,
Yep.
all these different,
Self-deprecating.
yeah, all these different things, right? But then when you allow yourself to be in that apprenticeship stage, it starts allowing yourself to have that freedom of failure as well, too. You're like, hey, like I am going to fail because I'm in the novice stage. Like I haven't really put in that
Yeah.
many hours yet, realistically. And this like journey or this like season that I'm in is meant for this learning. It is meant for me to mess up. It is meant for me to continue to take these reps. So
Wow.
then I can
That's
evolve
so
to the
well
next
said.
place.
That's so well said. I mean, what I'm really wanting to tease out of that for our listeners is a general awareness and acknowledgement for where you are in the process. You
Mm,
know, that,
hmm.
that word process is kind of a yucky word because
Yeah.
it necessarily implies that, there are a variety of phases, many of which might not be the most enjoyable uh, on the outside, or they may not be perceived with enjoyment that you got to go through and outlast in order to come through the other end, achieving what it is that you want. But I find that if you can objectively understand that there is a process, especially, for those that you admire and that those that you look up to, and I'm sure everybody listening has, one to maybe as many as several people that they admire. Objectively, all those people have gone through this apprenticeship. And
Hmm.
so you ultimately have to kind of come to a place where you sit down and you square with yourself and you say, well, what makes me think that I'm so special that I can just sort of skip this piece,
Yeah.
right? I mean,
Yeah.
what's special about me, Kofi, that I can just skip this? And that's where that humility is required. And hopefully you're not a narcissist
Yeah.
and you can exercise humility and say, all right, well, this is just what it is. This is just what
Hmm.
it is. So I've got to be open and available to go through the process of failing forward to ultimately build these skill sets. And that's where I've been too, man. I would answer the same thing, Kofi. For me, it's leadership and it's really building a culture around,
Mm.
a high performing sales arm of the company right now that I'm really in an apprenticeship right now. So I'm reading books like B2B Sales by Jim McMahon. I'm listening to all these people that have built award winning sales organizations and really working to slow down to go fast by building out systems and building out processes that basically set my team up for success, right?
Hmm.
Because ultimately, what I'm starting to recognize as a leader or as an apprenticing leader is that it's up to me to serve the people. And what I mean by
Yeah.
that, it's up to me to create an environment and an ecosystem that puts them in a position to win, right?
Hmm.
And what I'm having to recognize is like, all right, great. I've won for myself. Like I've done this for myself, but that doesn't matter now. Like, score 0-0 again. What
Yeah.
matters is me now building this skill set and apprenticing so that I can raise the bar and give these people an opportunity to come in and just knock it out of the park. And that requires a lot of trial and error, which is really like
Yeah.
the next phase that Greene talks about, right? Is like as you're in an apprenticeship, there's also the creative active phase where you're starting to experiment, you're starting to take risks. One of the risks that I've taken, and I'll be fully vulnerable about this, is hiring people, and one of them already not working out. I mean, it's hard as a leader when you make a decision, you select somebody, you're like, you're on my team, and then they're like, just they wash out like shortly
Yeah.
thereafter.
Yeah.
Man,
Yeah.
you hear that people sometimes like put on leaders, right? And
Yeah.
so you're starting to wonder, like, man, do I have what it takes to do this? Like this lady just quit on me,
Yeah.
right? And that ultimately, however you choose to skin the cat, is me getting some feedback from the market that, wow, I'm not that great of a leader right now. And that's okay.
Hmm.
In an apprenticeship, I'm in an apprenticeship. So how do I experiment, take risks, and start to find a way to develop my own style to ultimately get it right the next time around? And that's where I've begun to retrain my brain around the concept of failure is, all right, if I'm going to fail, I'm going to fail quick
Hmm.
because gonna take, it's funny, you bring up Hermosi. He has this book called $100 Million Leads. And
Mm-hmm.
one of the sections is about cold calling, which is what we're building our sales organization around. And he straight up was like, yo, first couple of months, nothing, right? Finally, month three, two sales, month four, four sales. And then it took us a full year to ramp up. So knowing
Mm.
that it's going to take you a full year to ramp up because I'm apprenticing under somebody like Alex Hermosi, who has said, hey, it took me a full year and then beyond to really professionalize our system, has ignited a sense of urgency in me to continue to show up and fail forward.
Yeah.
Understand that the failure will get us closer towards where we ultimately want to be. So I'd love to hear from you now, brother, as you think about experimenting, as you're observing from your apprenticeship hours, what's something that has stood out for you based off of failing that you feel is now ushering you a little bit closer towards this eventual state of mastery that you're looking to arrive at?
Yeah, yeah, man. Great question. So I'd say in the very same space, like it would be that aspect of like hiring and building out a team. So I also very similarly, I recently taken on an employee towards the end of last year. And one thing that I do find hard as a business owner or leader is that, like, when you make a decision, you really want it to work out. You really want it to, like, this
For sure.
you get like I'm the type of person I get a little emotionally, tied to the decisions I make. So I'm like, hey, I make a decision, I really want it to work out. And then I'm gonna put a lot of time and energy into that thing, working out. But the reality is that, I realized that I had this sunk ship fallacy. I was on the Titanic, you know, tried to hold on while the ship was going down, just like, this it's I'm gonna get to float somehow. But all in all, I realized that, like, I had hired the wrong person. And I, was too tied to like wanting that person to actually, do well and like progress and all these different things. And I just realized that, like, well, the reality is that I didn't have the experience to have the best discernment when I was making that hire to realize if that person would have been the actual best person in that position. Because again, I was in my
Wow.
apprenticeship.
That apprenticeship, it'll get you, man.
Yeah, I don't have that experience. So, this is, for me, it's, really again building out the right team and, learning more about how to understand what are the true needs that I need to fill within my company to better serve my clients, and then who are the people that can really best fit those roles as well too.
Yeah. Yeah. And you hit on a word there, discernment, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's a critical one, especially when you are new and you have really no basis to compare to. It's like, how do you discern? You really
Yeah.
just kind of operating off of that like subjective gut feeling, and
Yeah.
idea. I don't know if you feel this way, bro, but like the idea of like building a team and having people be a part of this thing that was once your little idea that are
Yeah.
now bringing their own time and their own energy towards is it's kind of like an intoxicating thing.
It is.
And so
It's
if you're not able to kind of like separate like,
yeah.
the wafting smell of that nice perfume that you're chasing in terms of
Mm-hmm.
that team to, hey, what do I objectively need in the next 1 to 3 people to achieve this? And you have no concept of what that has looked like because it's your first time, dude, it's easy to go astray. So what I'm getting at here is like cut yourself some slack. There
Yeah.
has to be an element of grace that allows you again to kind of come back and say, hey, well, from a quantifiable measure, I've never really made hires like this before. So let's just kind of go in knowing that there's going to be some hiccups, there's going to be some wrinkles, and we're going to have to just adjust in real time. And I think that, again, that mindset shift is something that can help all of us withstand this
Mm-hmm.
apprenticeship. It's something that can help all of us understand that the hours that we're ultimately looking to compound are going to be acquired through the doing, and the doing
Mm-hmm.
inevitably come with some failing,
Yeah.
right?
And
And yeah, please go.
yeah, and it's truly, what? It's truly having that growth mindset, because when you can put yourself in apprenticeship in the
Yeah,
trial and error phases, you have a growth mindset. We're getting to the point where we have this awareness that we are on a trajectory. We are not at a fixed point. So, Yeah, I make that first hire, it doesn't work out. Yeah, make that first, cold call, it doesn't work out. I try the first business, it doesn't work out. All these things are, areas that I can grow in. That's the reality. And I think that, with all the things that we see nowadays, we alluded to it before a bit on, instant gratification, social media, like we want to arrive. We want the first call that we make to be the biggest sale of our careers. we want we want the first girl that we talk to be our wife at the end of the day. We want that first hire to be that person that's going to be with our company for the rest of our lives, and they're going to be this amazing partnership and grow. And yeah, just like accepting, especially that trial and error phase, is so like it's very relieving. Like you can really sit there and be like, man, don't get me wrong, I'm still gonna have to put a lot of reps in. I'm still gonna have to put a lot of hours, a lot of time in. But I can understand that when I'm in that phase, I'm just gonna be going through and doing things and not like focusing on the outcome as much. I think that's where like, a lot of these aspects of the book really allow you to do it. Say, hey, like I'm not gonna be so focused on the outcome. Let me just focus on the input. Let me focus on the things that
Yeah.
I'm just doing. And,
Yeah.
I shouldn't be expecting the outcome of a master. I'm not even there yet. Let me just focus on doing the
Yeah.
things and allowing myself to, take a couple of steps and fall down every once in a while, but just know that if I keep taking these steps, I'm going to learn how to walk eventually.
Yeah, and I think that's the difficult part. I mean, that's the sticking point for me, man, is I have an aversion to rejection, right? Whether
Facts.
that be an employee leaves, a cold call doesn't go well, a deal doesn't get signed. I have an aversion, and I've
Hmm.
had to get to a place to where I've had to help myself understand that it's human nature. I mean, it's just part of my lived human experience relative to how, we've all been programmed and indoctrinated in society. Because as much as you and I are talking about, really what we're saying, Kofi, here is that there needs to be an element of resilience, right?
Hmm.
There needs to be an element of resilience that all of us are going to need in order to persist through these quote unquote roadblocks. As much as we can recognize that that is the case, it still doesn't feel good.
Yeah.
It does. And so inevitably you can get to a point in your day as you're working towards mastery of whatever the thing is that it's like the 200th outreach of the day and you still haven't gotten through to anybody. And that voice grows louder and louder, like, hey man, it's not working out. Hey man, what's the point? Hey man, your effort isn't leading to anything. And so I kind of want us to talk about that, right? Because I think that the audience could really be well served with maybe some frameworks or some fallback some fallback activities or strategies that they can possibly put into work or into motion when that
Hmm.
voice gets loud. So how do you personally overcome that? Let's stay on the example of the leadership with the employees, and you're maybe feeling like things aren't moving as quickly as enough, right? You're maybe
Hmm.
feeling like this hire isn't grasping some of the concepts relative
Yeah.
to where your standards are set. Like, how do you just keep yourself encouraged through the persistent failure?
Yeah, absolutely. So, it's interesting because I was actually having a conversation about this with my brother and his wife last night. And additionally, I recently took this Clifton Strengths Finders test, and I have a high competition. That's like competition is one of my like biggest strengths. So, one thing I realized that really helps for me is objectifying things and
Mm,
really looking at the numbers behind it. So it's really easy, to, want to believe in the magic in life. It's really easy to believe that, like, man, if I, again, like, we always want, to have a narrative or a story. So, like, you know, we want something to just magically appear. We want ourselves to be like, just automatically good at something, all these different things, right? And I realize that, like, for example, when it comes to, hiring, right? I want to make that perfect hire. I'm like doing all these different things. I think the first time I make that hire, it's going to go well.
Yeah.
Doesn't end up going well. And then I'm looking at myself, man, like, man, I just must be like a terrible leader or whatever it is. But then I think about, okay, like how can I like further objectify this? Like one, this is like maybe the fifth or sixth person that I've hired in my entire, career. Really haven't hired that many people. And
Right.
then let me also see, okay, what were the things that made me want to hire this person, and what are the things that, made me let them go as well too. And how
Mm.
can I, make sure and see like which of those things that, for example, made me want to hire that person that maybe led to me overlooking something
Right.
that didn't allow them to be a great fit for the position. And then also too, when I'm hiring this next person, like what are the qualities that I truly need to again objectively look at to see like what is going to make them successful in this position that I'm in. And then when I'm looking at performance, let me track the numbers because I believe that like, when it comes down to it, like life is a massive numbers game. Like if you put in enough reps, like the reality is that you're going to improve. And I felt for myself that when I measure things, it allows me to take a step back from like, believing in the luck, believing in the magic, and just truly objectively looking at something. So let's say that you're going through and you're trying to improve your health, right? You can be like, man, I just gotta, I guess, eat a smoothie and go to the gym, and I'm gonna do a couple workouts here and there, and then hopefully I'll look like Tom Cruise in 5 6 months, right? Right?
Interesting analogy.
Yeah. That's like probably use a better analogy, but yeah, right. That's like
Go
that's
with it. Okay,
yeah,
Tom Cruise, ladies and gentlemen.
yeah, Tom Cruise. Yeah, five,
Uh,
6 months, right? So like I could just hope, that I'm gonna get there by just kind of doing things randomly. But if I say, all right, like I'm gonna track my track my calories, I'm gonna like track my workouts, track my reps, really like take this objective look to see, okay, like, one week I did, 100 push-ups. The next week I did 200. This week I ate 2,000 calories. And then after some time, you'll start to see some results from that. And then like you remove yourself from just, again, all the emotion and the narrative that we want to put into something, thinking that it's like just magic. And you can objectively see, okay, like if I'm not getting this result, I this thing. And you do a little bit less of this. And I think that's such a powerful thing to do because it truly allows us to not have to, um, again, like believe in the magic and like think that if we fail at something in the first initial time, that thing just isn't for us at the end of the day.
totally, totally. So, as I'm just chewing on what you said, I have a sort of like a rebuttal, right? I feel like, yes, being objective about the data, really relative to the inputs, is critical because without that data, you are sort of just fleeting and, you know,
Mhm.
chasing after this mystical idea of luck that you're just gonna like find your way into
Yeah.
the girl, the guy, or the sale, or the right fit in the business, whatever the case might be. So there's an element of really understanding what the numbers say, to
Mm-hmm.
the numbers don't lie. Now, what if, Kofi, you're a person that doesn't like to track things? What if you're a person that has not yet built that skill set?
Yeah.
What do you think of that person?
Yeah. So learn to do it. Yeah, like learn to do it.
Where to do
I,
it, Hugs?
I'm gonna keep it real. I'm gonna keep it 100 for you guys. It is so, and even myself, I can say that like I do not like tracking the numbers as much. I'm not
Gotcha.
gonna lie. That's like
Gotcha.
I'm gonna keep it. I do not like tracking numbers as much. Not my favorite thing. I like doing the activity, and again, kind of believing in a bit of the magic. But
Yeah,
I realized that the more that I track and the more awareness that I have, truly the better at the end of the day that I'm going to be. So knowing that, I'm like, okay, how can I, like, for example, I hired someone and I had them build out the systems to make these things easier. Use technology, use all the things that are available to you to make it easier to track the numbers. You don't have to, write it down on a piece of paper and make it this super, you know, arduous task to do. You do what you can do to make it easier because when you're able to track, like I see it as like taking things that are like almost like in the unreal, surreal world down to like reality.
Yeah, yeah. And that's what I'm driving at here. And this is the main call to action for this conversation in my mind is if you're listening to this and you're feeling warm and fuzzies about what we're talking about, but you still are a bit unclear
Mm.
about what that next action step is so that you can apprentice in a way that doesn't feel like the failures or the challenges of the process have something to do with your worth as a human being so that you
Mm-hmm.
can ultimately get over those things and begin to get more into the creative side where you're testing and experimenting and ultimately get to your 10,000 hours. I want to know right now from everybody, what is your commitment? What is your commitment to tracking something that can be quantifiable
Mm-hmm.
relative to the inputs? This is why I really love the 75 hard program. It's do these 5 to 8 things every single day.
Yeah.
Did you do them? Okay, great. You did them. Success. No
Yes.
matter how you feel. Oh, you didn't do them? Fail. Start over. So I want to know right now from everybody. And obviously, you can't tell me because, this is recorded. But I want you to take a moment as you're listening to Kofi and I right now. And I want you to really, I mean, it goes back to dedication and commitment. What are the 3 to 5 things that you're going to commit yourself to
Mm-hmm.
relative to your goal? I mean, it's as simple as that. And once you identify those things, are you willing to stay committed to doing them
Mm-hmm.
after day so that you can ultimately get the data and the feedback that's required to look back and ultimately figure out what works, not off
Mm-hmm.
of how you feel the activity is going, not off of a hope and a wish and a flick of a penny into a fountain, but off of what the data actually demonstrates.
Mm-hmm.
That's the call to action right now. That is how I feel every single person listening to this gets a little bit closer towards the attainment of mastery, which, as we know, because we're all apprentices, just about is a thing that can be achieved to a certain
Mm-hmm.
level. Because look at all the people that we admire, right? I'm willing to bet that at some point it just was like, you know what, hand over fist. Here are the things I need to start to measure relative to what I can control within my ability. And I'm going to be relentless about pursuing it. That's what I want to leave folks with today, man. Like no matter which way you skin the cat, it just comes down to your point, learn to do it, and then taking it a step further. Here are the specific things that
Mm.
I'm going to commit to for a period of however long you feel like that needs to be for you to ultimately see if you are moving towards the right direction.
I love that. I love that. Yeah, let's leave it there. I think that is such a great initial step because when people are able to, clarify and, really move with intentionality behind, understanding what are those things I need to master and how can I start tracking them and how can I start progressing, like it really, opens up a whole nother world. And a whole other journey that they can now take because they can now see themselves as instead of this person that's supposed to be there, this person that is on their way to mastery.
Right. And what starts to happen is, and we'll talk more about this on part two, what I've recognized is like now there starts to be like an element of like this curiosity. It's almost like a childlike curiosity, think
Mm,
that
yeah.
you're learning to swim or you were learning to play a sport, or maybe you're learning like to drive or something that you were really excited about that inevitably when you first started you sucked at, but you start to find a little bit of a rhythm. You
Mm-hmm.
know, I remember it was like dunking a basketball. That was something that I was so relentlessly driven towards achieving, that as I began to kind of get it in the hole, I was like, oh wow, okay, like I wonder what happens if I do it this way, or I wonder what
Yeah.
happens with this adjustment. And you start to kind of fall in love with that process. Now all of a sudden, process isn't an adversary.
Yeah.
Process is a friend. Process is a component of your skill set
Hmm.
actually being developed in a positive direction that makes you feel really good about what you're doing, makes you feel really good about the inputs that you're putting in, makes you feel a lot more confident and vibrant towards the
Hmm.
goal you're looking to achieve. And
Yeah.
that is ultimately my intention for every single person listening, is that you would start to really enjoy this element and this art of process, which we all
Absolutely.
know in our conscious mind, or maybe our subconscious mind, is really where all of the joy of the journey and all the value of the journey is to be had. It's not the thing. I think we all know that deep down. It's not the thing. It's the process, and
Yeah.
that's where I get to, Kofi. So I'll give you the last word, brother.
Absolutely, man. And this is, I encourage so everyone that's listening to this to continue to seek mastery because I've realized that it is one of the most fulfilling journeys in life. Like when you can truly see yourself getting better and progressing at something, it's just like absolutely amazing. Like, I realized this, very long ago, but reading this book truly reminded me of this, that I just love challenging myself. I love doing new things. Like, I recently started boxing, I started rock climbing, and seeing myself progress through these different things and like, learning, different actions, how to punch, learning how to like, climb, rock climbing and do all these different things. Like it gives so much vitality to you when you can see yourself again going through these various stages. So whether you're, just starting your journey out, or maybe you're in the midst of a career, maybe you're a high level CEO, you've been doing a lot of the same things, seek something that you can do new, that you can achieve some mastery in, because it is one of the most just exciting, going back to that childhood experience, one of the most exciting things in life. So we're going to be diving into this again on part two of mastery. But I really, truly enjoy this, man. I'm looking forward to the next episode here. It's going to be awesome.
Absolutely, absolutely. So thank you all for tuning in to Coffee Conversations with Karl and Kofi. We'll see you in the next one.